Good morning, and welcome to the Women of Consciousness podcast. I'm your co host, Pam, and I'm actually going to be going solo today. And for the next couple episodes, Natalie is off enjoying vacation time. So I hope you'll bear with me. um, kind of having a little bit of anxiety actually this morning. So just trying to take some deep breaths and really ground myself as I prepare to go live. So if anyone is also maybe feeling a rushed pace, anxiety, like whatever, it's first thing in the morning, we have a lot on our plates for the day. I just kind of invite you to maybe take some grounding breaths as well. And really, yeah. So, and with that, I'm going to begin. So, I was thinking about really exploring, discovering our personal myth. Natalie and I have been diving into twin flame myth a few episodes now. It's a myth, story, reality, experience of life that we're both very, very familiar with. And it's become, deeply ingrained in our heart. And lately we've wanted to, I think, just protect that myth and really like set some truth around it. But today, like, I'm gonna kind of avoid going down that road and go somewhere else. Um, so looking at my life experience, and I will just say that all of this story, kind of experiential moments in my own personal myth story is because of that. I would say the twin flame is what seeded and rooted it and what took me out of one kind of reality and way of life into the spiritual. And so it's always tied together, but I can separate the two. And so I will just begin by really saying the dark night of the soul. These tower moments where it feels like a massive, like your whole life is literally ending, one world is collapsing and falling apart, can be massive jolts into a spiritual awakening. Um, Sometimes just meeting people or, like that shift and can be the catalyst. And so as my story unfolded, I kind of awoken to how numb I had been emotionally and was just really working working through that. And then through the emergence of that, I began healing. And through that process, I would say the universe has a way of aligning stories and articles and people and places and all these things that if you're awake and you're aware, and I think you're on that path, you'll get this like kind of ancient remembering, this intuition that just aligns with you. And you start to think like, oh, there's something to that. Like I feel connected to that time and that space. I feel connected to that culture. So for me, it was a lot of ancient Greek and a lot of ancient Egypt. And the more I connected, I would go um, further back in time to like Mesopotamia. So for me, it's been this great mother, the divine feminine, like the mother goddess. And so it's been through different cultures that I've been able to connect with her and through different archetypes. Hello, Zion. Um, and please, as the audience joins, if anyone has questions, I'm definitely here to answer anything. But I'm just kind of talking about personal myth and how we can discover that. And so I just noticed a connection to these goddesses. And I will say Persephone was one of the very beginning ones. And over the years, it cycled back to her at different phases. So the maiden, the mother, and the crone. What's on the agenda today? Yes, Zion. I'm hosting alone. Natalie is on vacation. So I'm hoping to definitely answer any questions the audience has as they join in. But I'm just really talking about personal myth since the last few weeks. We kind of were talking about twin flame myth. So I definitely wanted to talk about like personal myth outside of the twin flame myth. So for me, that's archetypes with gods and goddesses that I felt were a part of my psychology. Might rate your personality, kind of characteristic traits, archetypes within. And then looking at astrology and studying astrology, that was another way that I really saw them emerge and saw them reflected. Um, and so I think the importance of understanding our connection, our fascination, our interest to different cultures and different civilizations can be possibly a tie to past lives. It can definitely be like karmic stuff playing out. So I feel like the more that we acknowledge that and read about it and sit with it, allow us to see what arises, like how we resonate with it, like what about that story. So for me with Persephone, there's a lot of aspects to her. So this whole kind of maiden young woman that walked the earth very naive and beautiful and innocent, like who was kind of chosen by Hades. And there's that whole pulling and the raping or whatever, but this pulling into the underworld against her will. And then she eats pomegranate seeds, and like it's how she just kind of winter forms or whatever by her being there that 4 to 6 months of the year. So there was a lot of the story narrative that I saw as similarities and synchronicities and patterns that were playing out in my life. So definitely some very dark masculine energy, coming from even like my ex-husband. I was 16, 15 when we met, but 16 when we had our first child together. Stayed with him till 32. So yeah, I had to grow through a lot of phases after that because I had missed a lot of milestones. And so it was all of that innocent naiveness that I just stayed put in this place by this captor. Like, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but it's the truth. And I think a lot of people resonate because we get into relationships and maybe have kids and think we need to be there, or it becomes a comfort zone and or codependency or whatever, and we don't know how to leave when we need to leave, and we sometimes just really overstay. That's a myth story in itself. I will say later on with Persephone, as I grew and evolved and matured and did my healing, I saw different aspects of Persephone. So I saw her come into her power and become queen of the underworld. And so for me, that looked like, okay, fall, we're at the very end of fall, waiting winter right now. Like I no longer have seasonal depression. I no longer fight nature and the inevitable. Like I know I'm one with it. And so I can go into the cold and the darkening of hours, and what that means to have to retreat and slow down and like hibernate. I can do that more easily without fighting it and suffering internally or externally. And not only that, but as we get triggered and we do our healing and we meet people, and the waves of the universe bring us new lessons and new tests so that we can grow. I really, like, I didn't fear the process, and I just had more of my power. I could get through the darkness and the death, and what everything like the underworld truly represents for an internal journey. There were times where I couldn't do that. It would be so heavy. That can give you severe depression and make you not want to get out of bed. And so it's beautiful, I think, that I didn't get caught up on an emotion or a state of being. I saw it as a wave that I was navigating that was tied to more of an archetypal story that was for my own evolution. And not only in the process, um, wasn't Persephone right? Because yeah, so the question is, wasn't Persephone also very destructive to the divine masculine. And yes, like the feminine, when she is wounded, is destructive. She is self-destructive, she sabotages, she hurts the masculine. And it's the same thing, like when the masculine is wounded, um they hurt the feminine. And that's where I think we were talking in previous episodes about this wounded masculine, wounded feminine. And so the whole twin flame journey is coming into this union within yourself to heal those. Because as a human being, regardless of your sex, gender, you have energies that are masculine and feminine. And one is just going to be more dominant than the other. And so that plays out. And so the whole thing is to bring in this acknowledgement and this awareness to your masculine and your feminine, heal through both of their wounds and bring them into a balance and a harmony. And that is how you get into union. And so I was very wounded. Like I said, I was with my ex-husband from 15 to 32. I had my first child at 16. I was not developmentally ready for a lot of milestones that I hit. And then the way I had to shift into like motherhood and family mode as a girl. So absolutely, when I found myself single and divorced, I was very wounded. I had no sense of identity. And so that I feel like is what helps heal the archetypes, by me tapping into Persephone's energy, growing and evolving and healing me. And not only did that for myself, but it heals that universal consciousness of that energy that's outside of me. So going forward, I feel like that's part of the new wave. So as a collective, the more we all do this work, right, the more healed energy of the masculine and feminine we're putting out, and we're not tapping into this destructive toxic traits. Have you ever heard the term reactive narcissistic abuse? I don't think I've heard that exact term, but I do believe I know exactly what you're talking about. I am an empath, and so I have, like, you cannot have a narcissist without an empath. Like, that is two sides of the coin, the magnetic, attraction of quantum entanglement. So if a narcissist and an empath need each other, it will, if it is done correctly, they can heal each other, but it depends on the person. I learned when dealing with my narcissist how to catch myself from mirroring. I learned how to see when I was projecting, and I also learned to see when he was mirroring and projecting. That allowed me to stop those behaviors, so I didn't react to him. So, like, I didn't engage in the destructive pattern. I was like, whoa, this, I see it for what it is. It's too much. And I would try and talk to him and point it out. To a narcissist, that is like just adding fuel to the fire. They go into like defense mode and project even more. So it's really hard to navigate the narcissist empath, right, personal myth story. But I think it's about empowerment and healing. Yeah, narcissistic abuse. Wow. I mean, I feel, um just seeing those words, like, that was a huge part of my twin flame experience with the dark one, the false one. Yeah. Do we have the capability of being both? I would say, why not? I think so. I would say, like, consciously, like, you could not maybe not be aware that you're doing both, right? You may be ingrained in as an empath, but you're going to pick up on other people's emotions. You're going to be very persuaded and, like, I want to say, held down when you're not able to be like a conscious navigator of like your empathic being. Once you learn how to ground and protect yourself and stand in that power, I think you have more control and self-awareness that you disengage from any narcissistic behavior. But as an empath who's wounded and is around people that do nothing but hurt you and wound you, you're you're going to take on those traits because you're going to be mirroring it, you're going to be feeling it. So how can you not in some way, I think, be slightly narcissistic? I think it just depends on the intensity and the degree and the intention. Some people do it very intentionally, and other people have no idea they're narcissists. They have no idea that's how they're wired. So forgive me, I'm still on the twin flame thing. I was hoping you were still talking about that. No, absolutely. I can go back. I'm talking about myth story, and twin flame is a myth story. So absolutely. If you have questions around twin flame, like I have no problem answering that. Empath narcissist. And that's why I said before you joined us, a lot of my personal myth that I discovered in my like separation phases or in my journey of twin flame connection, a lot of it I went through either solo or with them. I so it's hard. It's hard. It's like this woven fabric that you're like trying to take apart thread by thread. And so it's kind of hard to leave out the twin flame part of the myth because it is the root. It is the seed that caused all of these roots. But at the same point, I've tried to navigate it for years without talking about twin flames. It wasn't only until recently with Natalie and the way culture, I think it's been waking us up more as a collective to twin flames. And I think that is the myth story of Gaia and the collective consciousness having her own myth story and her own purpose for humanity that we are not always fully aware of or connected to. So I think that's why right now, all of a sudden, this twin flame thing seems to be like in your face and on the rise as part of the paradigm shift. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask anything. My co-host Natalie is on vacation for the next couple weeks. I am going to try and get some guests. Actually have a really good friend who has a wonderful healed masculine identity and voice. So we're going to get him on here. He's agreed to come on and also even with the twin flame and the masculine and all of that, give his perspective. So I'm really excited about that. I will say I recently celebrated my youngest son's 10th birthday, and I have been very much aware of initiation, again, as my own myth, this process of rite of passage and being called, I think, by the universe, by this higher spiritual power that is giving me this gift of like plant medicine and insight and knowledge. And so with my son, I've been very much aware of raising these boys and wanting them to be in a healed masculine energy. And so I've been thinking about this initiation into manhood and how boys don't have that. And so with his birthday, I made that very clear. I wanted to celebrate that. And so that's one thing as a family we've been doing recently, and I plan to be doing over this holiday vacation that we're having. So I'm going to tap into the elements, and we're going to, go do a cold plunge in the ocean. He's done some cold baths, and he really liked that. We're going to do some breath work to tap into air. Collect firewood. I'm going to have him build a fire. I do lots of ritual and ceremonial fires. But I'm going to let my son build it. And I have these beautiful like wax, fire starters. So I'm going to, guide him through the process and let him feel this kind of seed being planted on this initiation calling into manhood. So that's where I'm currently at in my personal myth as this divine feminine mother raising these boys. That I really want to do it right. And I think it's really important. That's why Natalie and I are on here talking about, wounded feminine, wounded masculine. and how we can work through those traumas and those healing processes and get to the other side and become these fully embodied, divine, feminine, and masculine, healed versions of our true beings. All right, so Zion says, I'll give you an example. If a man cheats and a woman throws a brick through his precious truck, would that be reactive or narcissistic, and vice versa? Well, if he's cheating and she throws a brick through his truck, yes, it's very reactive because she's wounded, she's hurt, she's lashing out from her place of pain. And in that moment, that's the only way that she knows how to communicate, right? Is through this act of violence. Again, like why does it have to spiral, I guess, to that way, right? Why are you cheating, or the man cheating? Not saying you are, but I'm just saying, like, this is where with a healed couple, communication is at the baseline. And, like, why even be together if you have a desire to be with other people? And if it's an open relationship, I mean, that wouldn't really be considered cheating. So again, it's all about communication. But yeah, I mean, it's an act of violence. So that's definitely coming from a wounded place. Because me, like, if I was cheated on today in this very moment, I would be super hurt. I'm sure I would cry. Like, I would isolate for a minute and I'd work through my emotions, and I'd probably, have questions. Was it me, my fault? But then I would want to communicate. I would want, as awkward and uncomfortable and as painful as that is, it's all about getting into our vulnerability to get to our healed sides. We need to be vulnerable with ourselves and with each other. Cheaters are all trash. Sorry, I apologize. No, that's fine. I mean, when we've been cheated on, we definitely, that becomes, right, part of our myth story as well. There's a lot of tragedy. Like, we want to believe in a fairy tale love story, and then when we get cheated on and we get hurt, it's hard to believe, that love exists or that people are out there. And that's when we start closing down our heart chakra. And that's when we start closing off our throat chakra. And we start causing these blocks of energy within our body, because we're wounded. And so that's, again, something, that energy will arise and come up, to help heal those wounds. So if you've been cheated on, and you've closed down your heart, and you're going on with your life, there's going to be a moment in time eventually down the road that the universe is going to be like, oh, are you ready? Are you ready to get through this? Are you ready to learn your lessons? And so they're going to bring somebody into your life to trigger all those wounds. And then it's, how do you react? I mean, narcissistic, I would say there's characteristic traits to that. That is a very specific personality trait, and not everybody is narcissistic. But if you can notice, like, yeah, you're being gaslighted and manipulated, then yeah, I would probably think, like, that's a narcissist. If it's someone who's just really has abandonment and rejection issues, and you're hitting a massive wound for them, and so they're freaking out, then it's just showing you a core wound. I asked her that all the time because she still cheated and kept coming back to me. I'm at this point ready to concede she is a false flame, but I can't break the connection without her because of the quantum entanglement. And I understand what you mean. I did the same thing with my false flame. They were more of a best friend, and boundaries was a huge lesson that was part of our myth story. Again, it was that Persephone Hades archetypes that we were tapping into. I had come on, like I said, I was very honest. I was 15 to 32 with my ex-husband. We had 4 children. I missed out on a lot of milestones in my life. He was very controlling and possessive. I had a massive spiritual awakening because of the twin flame story. coming into my life and saying it's time for you to get out of this relationship because you're dead inside, you're not living, like boom, you have a purpose, right? And I feel like that was my caterpillar dormant stage. um and I had to have all of that. um when I reconnected with my false flame who I knew from childhood, I originally thought they were my cousin because I was born into like that family. Thinking their mother was my aunt, their grandmother was my grandmother. I mean, it's kind of a mess, but it goes into my mother's own wounds looking for family and trying to attach to family. So I had to deal with that and see it for what it was. So around like 3 or 4, I can remember us being little cousins playing, in my mind. And then obviously at some point realizing this is not your actual family. These people are just close friends. And then a time of dormancy or just seeing them over the years here and there. So when I was 12, we left states. I went and moved and lived in the same town. And so we became friends again. And then that was it. It was just a few months. And that's kind of what brought in the other twin and everything. And then life happened over the next 3 years. And like it just so it kind of like kept going and kept going. So when we caught up 20 years later, it was like automatic friendship, right? Kind of picking up the pieces. But I was very honest in the fact that I am not ready. I'm not ready to settle down. Like, I have no idea who I am. Like, I need to be able to date. I need to be able to just navigate being single. But we had such a close friendship and boundaries being a massive lesson that needed to be learned. It became hard. It became very entangled. It became very traumatic. Absolutely. It became toxic. He was tapped into more of demonic, dark energies, where I talk about like Persephone and goddess of the mother goddess energies. His was Abaddon. His was Hades. This Lucifer, dark energy. I can remember one point seeing him possessed and watching him be taken over, and this archetype emerge and have a conversation with me and tell me how the darkness has followed me through lifetimes, and told me his name was Abaddon and called me Aphrodite, which Aphrodite is absolutely like one of my strongest traits. And I mean, I'm a Pisces, so when you look at the astrology of the stars right there to Aphrodite. But so yeah, that quantum entanglement, you cannot break it. And you will keep coming back and forth to each other, because that's where you're learning. That's where you're healing. My empath was getting, her power sucked out of her, while his narcissist was getting all of his power fueled. So that whole power dynamic was a massive story for us. But when it was good, it was so amazing. This was my best friend. This was the person that I connected with unlike anyone before. We could sit and meditate with each other. We could go into stores and buy crystals and have conversations around stones and pull cards. We could go to rock concerts and movies and out to dinner, and everything was like 50-50. It was experience as I had never had. And so it was hard to break that, because like I wanted that, but at the same point, I didn't want a relationship. So there was a lot of pain. I caused a lot of wounds and a lot of pains to him. So earlier when you had asked about, the feminine kind of causing wounds and whatnot and being narcissistic and those things, destructive to the masculine. Absolutely. All right. So the Hades Persephone relationship in real life. Yes, I would say that was our myth story. We were tapping into those archetypal energies. So for me, part of the myth story and archetypes like Hades, Persephone, Aphrodite, Aries, That has arisen from my psyche, from my soul being. The more I have tapped into altered states of consciousness, the more like past life, the more that I have just chosen a relationship with myself and with the universe. um they've just arose, and I am like, oh hey, okay. Like here's a new cycle beginning, and I'm feeling Artemis this time. So I know it's about tapping into this wild woman, very independent energy. Or, okay, this is a new cycle, and now I'm feeling this Aphrodite arising, and it's back to beauty. And I'll say I had a wonderful experience with her once back in 2020 when COVID happened. Um, for 2 seconds, I had connected with a person, and I think they helped kind of inspire some of that energy to rise. But I had started channeling and downloading. I go into like trance states when this happens, and it's very poetic, and it's, maybe like a meditational period, right? It could be just a few minutes. Um, but I was out walking and connecting with nature, and I felt called to go sit in this spot, and Aphrodite like just came, and I could feel her energy coming in, and it was all about rising in this power of the feminine beauty. Right? She represents finances and fertility and love and beauty. So it was really tapping into a new level of her qualities and traits. And I came home, and I got really inspired, and I stripped my whole bedroom and I sanded and I mudded and I painted and I did everything. My walls were white and very plain, and I was tired of that. And so I went with purples. It's my favorite color. So I did purple walls and a purple trim. And I spent 3 days tapping into a balance of my masculine, because I tell you, like sanding and mudding, I didn't like the way it felt. I didn't like the way it sounded. It made me really respect the masculine energy and guys that go into like carpentry and building houses and all of these things, because here I am on a ladder. I'm like painting the ceiling and, going around the room, and I didn't do tape, and it was just like, I got this. So for me, it was this beautiful balance and harmony of my masculine and my feminine. And when the room was done, I'm a pagan, so I like to do like energy work with nature and the elements, and I protected my space, and I connected with the four corners and the directions and the elements, and I did some protection spells. And then I refurnished it. I bought like a new dresser and new mirrors. Like I brought in all, like I got rid of my closet doors, and I hung up these curtains. And so it was this whole brand new energy of the goddess, like in her fullness. And it's the most like sacred spot in my home, and it's the most comfortable. um and so that was just over like 3 or 4 days of being on this wave of that energy. But that was just one little tiny aspect of this beautiful myth story. All right, so Zion has. I've been looking for closure from her for years. She has been ultra resistant. As you know, that which we resist persist. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I say that all the time. I've had several encounters with her from the universe, some of which I don't believe she's aware of. My question is, if you happen to be able to heal the wounds you made, would you? Is there any hope I can get her to give me closure so I can have healthy relationships moving forward? I I really relate to a lot of what you're saying. Um and I almost have this weird instance like I could be her. If, so maybe on her behalf I could maybe channel some of that forgiveness, for the universe, for this higher consciousness, beyond her ego. And I think that's where you need to look at it. Maybe her ego is still too wounded or fractured or still in its process, right, of becoming and unfolding. So connect on a spiritual side. I had to give apologies and accept forgiveness that I knew I would never be able to do in person. And a lot of that was, like I had said, to that Abaddon, Hades archetype, twin flame energy myth story that I had to play out with another person that really was my best friend for a small moment. If I could meet him today, being who I am today, our stories would be completely different. I would have the boundaries in place to absolutely be just the friend that they always needed. At that time, I needed that toxicity. I needed that fear and that power that they took from me, because in the process I was able to go on and heal myself and give and empower myself in ways that I could have never dreamt of, to become the divine goddess that I am today, and balanced with my masculine. um and I love him. I do. He's a dark person. Like, I get it. I feel, like that's his conscious choice, like whatever. I hope his soul chooses to grow and evolve. Um, but that was so vital to our story and to get me to where I am. A lot of it sucks and it's really painful and it hurt a lot of other people as a ripple effect. Um, but I mean, you at some point you have to, I think, make acceptance with the myth story, and you have to realize, beyond the ego aspect of our psyche, we came here, we incarnated as a living conscious choice to embody this, physical life with these other energy beings. And whether you believe in soul contracts and how breakable or, you know, voidable they are, um everything is about our own evolutionary process on a human developmental level and on a conscious evolutionary level. So I hope that helps, Ion. I would say, if you can't heal with them in the physical realm, go to the astral realm, go to the dream realm, go to the meditational realm. When I was on ayahuasca, um I was able to have the plant medicine help me with that. um when I've done shrooms on other plant medicine journeys, I've been able to have the plant medicine help me with to see the connection clear, to see like why those things had to happen, and to be able to just find forgiveness within myself and for them, and to really, not only the forgiveness, but to see the beauty and the love and the appreciation for the story, even though it's so much wounds and pain that arises from it. There's still a lot of beauty that we tend to not look at. All right, so there's some other comments. Changing space helps change energy and headspace so much. Absolutely. And I think that the moment you can recognize you're feeling this wave of more heavier energy come on, um and you can ground yourself and you can step back and observe the energy, right? You don't need to get caught up in the thoughts, you don't need to get caught up in the emotional heart space, but step back and observe it and recognize, what is it coming in for? Like, what is it teaching you? What's it showing you? Like, why are you attaching or holding on to it? Like, just to be able to work with it, that can show you a lot of where you're at in your own journey. And then it helps you, because you navigate the wave. You're not out there like surfing and then fall off and drown. You can literally like ride the wave successfully and boom, go on with your day. um Forgive in increments. Forgiveness sometimes doesn't come all in once, like grief. Sometimes it happens in waves. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you got to keep going back to like the root, right? If you're just pulling at it and pulling at it, you got to keep digging deeper until you find that core root, like buried like inches and inches underground. Grow and evolve. Love is the crucial. Nothing happens at once and things can re-trigger. Love, this is crucial. Absolutely. Love is the highest frequency, the highest like vibrational frequency of consciousness of the universe. It is what we all come from, that oneness, God, source, primordial energy. It's what we separate from, and it's what we all come back into. Again, a reflection of the twin myth, twin flame myth, the oneness, separation back to oneness. And in the process, you're just growing and evolving in extraordinary ways. So I think it's about just catching on, if you can, if you're able to resonate again with culture, with archetypes, with stories. The Wizard of Oz was a big theme that has so much synchronicities and just cycles back and back. And the ironic thing for me was, growing up, I hated The Wizard of Oz. Like, it just creeped me out as a movie. I just didn't really enjoy it. And that became one of my most biggest themes, that I just ran into all the time. And I realized I was Dorothy, right? I wasn't thrown from Kansas into Oz, into this magical world when I had my awakening. And I met these allies and friends and mentors, and I had these guardians and guides, and I was on the Yellow Brick Road. And I had to learn, right, to navigate those things. And some people were toxic narcissists that I had to learn from, and others were beautiful, the most beautiful twin flame soulmates, or just soulmates that I could have ever imagined aligning with. I've so many beautiful, healed people, an amazing spiritual community I've been truly blessed with in the past year. And I feel like I had found my way home at one point as Dorothy. And I then flipped and became Glinda. And that's why I had named my business Glinda's School of Alchemy, because I knew, like, at the core of who I am, I'm here to share my guidance and my wisdom. I'm here to be a mentor and a teacher and an educator to help other people, through my own education, through my own lived experiences. And so it was like the mastery and the maturity of going from Dorothy to Glinda. And then recently, I had my very first amazing DMT experience. Part of my initiation myth story has been sacred medicines. And so I had never gone looking for DMT, but I had heard people's stories, and I had just kind of put it out that I would like to try that in a safe space if it was to ever arise. And the universe did bring that for me. And I feel like with that experience, I was at the very end of Oz as this integration of characters, and I finally saw the other side of the veil and the man behind the curtain and how it really operates and works. And so for the last like 2 months, I've been integrating and working with that life-changing experience, because nothing has really been the same for me after that perspective and tapping into the universe the way that I did. So now it's like, okay, how does this continue to evolve and grow and alter my myth story? So I journal. It's very important to me to journal. I think you can look back and be able to see these stories arise from, within. Alice in Wonderland, I think we can all kind of relate to chasing this white rabbit and going down rabbit holes. That's a pretty big collective story, I believe. All right, so there's some more comments. I'm going to go back to that. Oh my, it's a never-ending story for me. Yes, I can relate, Zion. May I challenge you from a male divine perspective? If you have the opportunity, heal the wounds of the divine masculine that you created. Do so. And I love that, and I agree. And for me, I have done that as much as I could when I could, because I know it wasn't just one person. Right, my with there's I have and that's the thing, is the feminine, like, there was a lot of responsibility I had to take with the energy. I was not aware of the Aphrodite energy that I carried and emitted. I wasn't aware of how that made men see me and feel comfort and nurtured when with me. Um, and so when I needed to do what was best for me and move on and things like that, right? That ending of energy entanglement can cause triggers because you don't want to lose what feels really good to you, you know? That causes an ego death when you don't know how to like continue on with this person that has now become a part of your path or your phase. Um, and so for me, it was like, no, I got to go. Like, I learned what I needed to learn. We're not on the same spiritual plane. Like, I did my shadow work, you know, like, you got to deal with your own abandonment, rejection issues. And if I'm triggering that for you, I'm sorry. So the more that I came into my power and into my healed version, I didn't wound the masculine. I could walk away from relationships without wounding them. And if they were wounded, it was because it was triggers that were already there. It was already issues that they hadn't healed themselves. And until they do the work, any woman that they meet or align with, any feminine, or whatever, you know, or person that's there to fill that energy space, regardless masculine or feminine, is going to trigger those wounds. It's going to cause, you know, that to come up. So I think it's really important that everybody again does the healing, because the more you heal yourselves, you don't go around healing hurting other people or wounding them, because again, you know how to exit relationships, you know how to communicate, you know how to navigate the whole entire process of the relationship, knowing it's about vulnerability, and connection, and communicating honestly. um but I agree, like, yeah, if you ever hurt anybody, like, yeah, I think owning that responsibility and taking care of that, because why do we want to hurt people? Why do we want to keep causing, you know, this ripple effect of closed off heart chakras? That's not good for anyone, and I don't have that intention at all. I actually have tried to maintain friendships with some of the relationships. But in the case of the dark energy with the Hades Abaddon, I had to have a court order for protection. There was stalking and harassing that went beyond me. He was stalking and harassing family, like my children, my friends, people I didn't even know, like strangers. He would just make it, I don't even know how he went after strangers, but he just made like these connect the dot assumptions and then message them. He did fake accounts. I lived in fear. I have security cameras on my property. So absolutely not. That is not that is why when you were talking about not being able to connect in the physical realm for that apology, I completely understood. That was something that repeatedly, time and time again, has healed in the dream space on on its absolute own, without, you know, my intentions, or I have intentionally written out a letter and then burned it in a fire, knowing that the universe will bring that message of healing to that person. Because when it comes to your safety, not, absolutely not. Like, don't put yourself in a place where you're going to jeopardize your actual like physical being. If that person's a danger and a threat, go, you know, you just got to do the work on your own. And that's where it's harder. I think it's really harder because you won't receive those apologies. You're not going to have those conversations. Um, it was very deeply wounded. But again, I'm not that person. That woman died. He took all my power and I gave it back to me. So I'm grateful for that process and that journey, because I wouldn't be who I am today. Um, all right. So DMT is life changing. I've experienced incredible growth through DMT. Oh yeah, I can imagine. I only had the one experience where I did it twice. I did it back to back. And that was profound. But I'm in a sacred medicine sacrament community, where we do plant medicines. It's something I feel that, again, because I've done this work as an alchemist, part of my myth, the universe has initiated me onto this path. And so it was pretty amazing, that I've been able to receive these gifts of seeing the structure of the universe. And that's something that, as I grow and evolve and, integrate and understand, and can like piece with my life experiences, supporting us, today and over the last, couple of months, as we've been getting on here every week. Natalie is on vacation, so I will be going solo, today. I'm hoping to have a co-host as a guest, at least maybe once or twice. But I definitely at least wanted to come on and really continue the conversation around just consciousness and how that kind of looks at archetypes, within ourselves, by looking at, our own feminine and masculine energies, looking at, our personal myth story. So I kind of jumped around and just gave some insight into different, goddesses and different moments that I've experienced that has helped me grow and evolve. But I'm just really, really grateful to have this platform and have, people showing up that are interested and have questions. So feel free. Our Facebook page is Women of Consciousness Consulting. I should definitely drop the link in at some point, but feel free to reach us, if you have questions. Natalie and I definitely want to help give guidance to people. We want to be able to share our story and really just help help others, heal their wounds, intergenerational wounds, the collective wounds. There's a lot, and we're in a massive paradigm shift. So I think as more people awaken, maybe you'll resonate to different time periods and cultures and archetypes, and you'll start seeing them mirroring within you, or arising. And I definitely say check out your birth chart if you're in astrology. That is definitely one way, that you can see the archetypes arising, is through like your dominant elements, and star signs. But thank you. I'm going to sign off for now and wish you all a lovely Tuesday. Thanksgiving is on Thursday, so if you celebrate that in the States, happy Thanksgiving. May you enjoy time with family and friends. And if anything, I'll leave you this tip. Just notice the energy. Notice, it's a hard space that we're about to kind of go into for a lot of people, friends and family. These holiday celebrations can be very painful. They can be very joyful. I think it's a wide range of intensity of emotions and thoughts and feelings that it brings up for the collective. So ground, take some deep breaths, take time for you, for sure, especially if you feel like you're carrying all the weight or you're forced into a situation you don't want to be in. And just maybe take a step back when you're around these people and look at the myth stories playing out. Look at the control or the narcissistic or the empath. Look at the wounded, goddess, or the wounded masculine. And just look and see where the reactions or the actions are coming from. And you don't have to say anything, you don't have to do anything, but if you just observe and notice, that in itself can be very life changing for how you navigate and what you reflect on. Because as much as the holidays are fun, it's overwhelming and it's stressful, and that as a collective ripples out, and we feel that and we pick up on that. So just take time to take care of yourself, give yourself self-care, give yourself love. Take back your power, speak your truth, don't block off your chakras. um, just stay in a high vibration of love and ground. That's my guidance for the rest of the week. I hope that helps, and I will be back next week, hopefully with a healed masculine perspective to help you guys really dive into more questions and to bring more balance. Thank you. Have a great day.